I'm Kelly Hoyland with IMS. Welcome to our Learning Impact on Demand 2020. At IMS, we believe in the power of dynamic collaboration as a catalyst for digital innovation and transformation in education. In this spirit, we're bringing together leaders in our community representing top learning institutions and edtech suppliers to share knowledge and ideas for reimagining the educational experience and exploring new opportunities for shaping the future of teaching and learning. Today's topic is Reimagining the student experience to expand content access and promote equity. And now for the introductions, we'll start with Jan.
So my name is Jan Bottorf. I am the LMS administrator at Lock Haven University. And over the past couple of years, I've also been handed the roles of virtual bookstore manager and our inclusive access program coordinator. So that's what I do.
Thanks, Jan. And Scott, can you give us a little bit of an introduction?
Hi, everyone. Scott Gaspar, Director of Product. I've been working in EdTech now for about 15 years. Been at VitalSource for approximately 6, and prior to that, worked as an LMS administrator and technical product owner at a large institution, and been working with the IMS community for 10 to 15 years also, and a big fan of standards.
Thanks, Scott. And Leann.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leann de León. I'm Director of Marketing here at VitalSource. Been working in education for about 15 years. For 12 or 13 of those years, I was at Wiley, which is a big higher education publisher that many folks listening to this may know. In addition to being, focusing on issues of access and affordability in my role now, I'm also legally blind and a big advocate for accessibility.
Great, thank you. So Jan, can you tell us a little bit more? It sounds like your role is unique, that you're doing both the LMS admin work and managing course materials. So what are some of the things that you've learned having to wear both hats?
Well, I have learned that the role is unique. So that was one thing I didn't know going into this, is that not very many people wear both hats. I definitely see things from both points of view, the instructors getting ready and deciding which books to use, and then how that translates to how the students actually get those books, and what the best way is for the students to access those books. And so I can see where the struggles might be when the two roles really don't communicate very well. I fully understand why students need to access them in certain ways, and the best ways, again, that's going to be easiest for them and where they expect to find them.
Great, thanks. That makes a lot of sense. So Leann, can you tell us a little bit about how inclusive access typically works at an institution?
So inclusive access is a model where students have the content that they need to be successful. So the required course materials, those get added to their student account, and they have access inside the LMS on the first day of class. There's two really important things to know about inclusive access. One is there are U.S. Department of Education regulations around it. So that means that students must get the content at a below market cost, so it can't cost more. In fact, it needs to cost less than what they could find it, where they could find it elsewhere on their own, and they must get the ability to opt out of the material. So it's really a very favorable model for the student, brings down the cost for them and makes sure they're ready to learn on the first day. So as we're talking all about the LMS here, inclusive access is one of the first ways that a lot of content started being brought into the LMS for students. So that's why Jan's role is really interesting, because she's seeing kind of the full spectrum of kind of how course materials and the LMS kind of intersect.
Yeah, that's probably a very crucial thing. And it sounds like there's been a lot of growth in this area, driving inclusive access, especially in the last few months and over time even. So what's driving that growth as campuses look, what should their technology teams know? Leann and Scott, maybe you've got some stuff to add to that.
Yeah, I'll start and then pass it to Scott. So the inclusive access has been really growing, I'd say, for the past 5 years. It started first, a couple of first schools to do it were schools like UC Davis, University of Tennessee, Knoxville, And then it kind of has grown. And now I would say the majority of colleges and universities are experimenting with or rapidly growing inclusive access. And it's a model that's just perfectly suited for where we are today. When students were sent home in March and they had to all of a sudden take all their classes, and their lifeline, their connection to the institution was the LMS, it just made sense for that content to be there. Like, actually, I'll give you a good example. Um, when everything closed down in March due to COVID, a number of school students were on spring break, and the institution said, just don't come back. Well, a lot of those students left their textbooks. If they were using print, they left them in their dorm and they were trapped, and they didn't have access to that material. And it wasn't fair to ask them, well, to purchase it again so they could finish out the term. But schools that were really making extensive use of inclusive access, those materials followed the student wherever they were. They were just right inside the LMS, Canvas, or D2L, or Blackboard. And I'll stop there and let Scott jump in.
Yeah, I mean, inclusive access lends itself to promotion of digital delivery of content. And so because of COVID and everything else going on, it was really difficult for students to get access to their materials. And so we're seeing, we track all of our LTI launches into course materials. And we're seeing, an average a week last year of around 2 million launches to content. And now we're averaging 4 million launches to content a week. So we're seeing huge growth in delivery via the LMS, via LTI.
That's great. So Jan, how has your program at Lock Haven grown, and kind of what was the impact of COVID? Has it already grown before that? What's changed for students and instructors as they adapt to this growth?
So we did a handful of pilots. I found at our university, for some reason, it was a bit of a hard sell, the whole ebook concept. We did see a huge growth from spring 2020 to fall 2020. And as Leann said, when the students got sent home in March, many of them left their textbooks behind. And I think that was a moment right there. A lot of the faculty were thinking, oh, geez, and I had a lot of them express to me, I guess this is why we should have done, that ebook thing, tell me more about this inclusive access thing, so, and that's why we saw such a huge jump. And, as I was processing, the fall book orders, I had a lot of faculty say, let's definitely go with that ebook thing you told me about, because we already know what fall is going to look like. So, and I'm seeing it a lot. And so professors who weren't embracing it before really saw, the need for it. And now they're opting that, as their first line. So I'm seeing it a lot in setting up for spring 2021. So it's really, I think it's going to continue to grow.
Have students been very open to these changes because they're kind of digital natives, or how are they feeling?
Yeah, I think most of them are. Of course, you'll always have, the handful who prefer a print option, but that again is why it's important to let them opt out. I've seen many prefer to remain opted in and buy the print, book because they just want it all. But a lot of them are saying, oh, thank goodness, you're saving, such a huge percentage off of, what a brand new hardback would cost. And, they really prefer the online access anyway. And as Leann had said, you can take it anywhere, so they can log into VitalSource Bookshelf at any point in time. And, they don't have, it doesn't matter where they are. So they're loving it. I think the students are really liking it.
So how does the course material process typically work, and who typically handles it for your institution?
Well, I now am reaching out to the faculty to access their old, what they have used in the past and see if they're going to use that again. So I kind of am, the book order, I'm the book order lady now. And then, again, since I wear both hats, then I can look at what they're selecting and help them decide, okay, well, here are your options. Is it courseware? Is it going to be just a simple ebook? And, so it helps them decide. And then I go ahead and get that set up in our inclusive access portal, and then make sure everything's ready to go again for the first day of classes. That is one note that I kind of wanted to circle back to something before I started doing all of this, I had no idea how many students simply weren't purchasing the book. because they couldn't afford to, and or they were waiting a month into the semester when they saved enough pennies to buy their book. So this is just working out so much better for students all the way around.
That's great. Yeah. I can imagine having the book on the materials on the first day really makes a difference for them. How can an LMS and campus technology folks learn more about how course materials are handled on their campus?
Yeah, well, and actually, before I answer that, there is one thing I wanted to mention about Jan's program. So, access is so important, as Jan said, that, students weren't getting the materials, and, a lot of them got stuck in the spring. But there's something else that's really, really important. Is that really impressive student savings come out of these programs because publishers, negotiate lower prices for content that's in inclusive access. And just at Jan's institution alone, the savings so far are about $108,000. And that's off of the already low price of the digital material. So that's lower than the price as if the student just went on, a website and bought an ebook. So I think that's really important. And in terms of kind of getting started and figuring out, what you need to know, or what, the benefits that the institution can provide, the first step is understanding how your institution functions. So how is your institution set up? Jan's in this really interesting position where she's seeing both sides of things, but a lot of times the bookstore is over here, and on the other side of things, you have the LMS team, and they may not have a common, they may not report up to a common place, and they may not have had a lot of opportunity to work together in the past. So the first thing to do is just get to know who the people are on your campus who are involved in course materials. So that is at most institutions. That is the campus store. If there's any courseware in use, or learning materials that get embedded within or integrated into the LMS, it's the LMS team. Obviously, instructors are impacted because they are making content decisions. The important thing to know about inclusive access is that it doesn't impact academic freedom. So faculty can keep doing exactly what they're doing. But those are the people who are actually going to kind of make it all happen. But the other people who are really important is you want to have a champion. So getting a provost or someone in academic leadership, a vice president of academic affairs, someone like that, getting that person involved is going to help just kind of bring everyone together. And it's important to not forget groups like getting student government involved, just so that they can be champions and help the students understand that this is something that is ultimately going to benefit them. And then you also, in inclusive access programs, you are placing those lower costs, those charges on the student's account. And again, they can opt out, but you do need to get someone from the bursar's office typically involved just to kind of figure out the process. But I think, before if your institution is not doing an inclusive access program, before you go all the way there, a first step and a really quick win is just get together with the LMS team and the campus store and understand how things are working, and say, are there things we can make simpler, like access codes? Can you just take the printed cardboard pieces of, the scratch off that a student might get to access a piece of courseware, and can you just put those in the LMS so the student doesn't have to go through all that? And I know that both Jan and Scott have great stories around kind of how all of that works, but that's an easy, quick win.
Yeah, and before we pass it back to Jan, I think, on the technology side of the house, as you're working through, looking to see if you want to work and run an inclusive access program, we were talking a lot recently about the adoption cycle, adoption and course materials management process, getting faculty to want to convert to digital, convert to an inclusive access adoption. Jan can probably talk about this, but a lot of times, the folks at the school don't talk closely together, and so your adoption process may be emails from faculty members, and sometimes things may just show up in the LMS randomly, like who knows what's going on. So looking for ways to consolidate and streamline your adoption process is really important to getting things moving quickly.
So Jan, it sounds like access codes was one of the things that this inclusive access program helped. Is there other areas, or can you expand a little bit more about the access code conversation that happened and the win in that area?
Yeah, so that is one thing, you know, as we're trying to get more and more faculty to kind of get on board, we were for a while in a situation where there were a lot of courseware access codes still being just listed for sale in the virtual bookstore. And I came to find out that, as Leann said, they're simply shipping a paper, you know, business card looking thing to these students. In the one semester, I believe we were at least 6 weeks into the semester, and our virtual bookstore provider emailed me and said they had a whole list of these codes that were on back order, you know, and what did I want to do about them? And I thought, oh my goodness. So I kind of announced at that point that from that there would be no more access codes sold through the virtual bookstore, when it's so easy to just place that access code in the LMS. It's a simple reveal. It's a button that they click. The students have their access codes and then can just click through the publisher widget in most cases when the integration is there, and just use their code. There's just literally no reason for an access code to ever be back ordered. So we won't ever have that problem again. And so, yeah, so that was the big access code story. And I'm a big advocate of those publisher integrations as well. When possible, it just takes one more step away from the students, you know, getting to where they need to be.
So Leann, you had mentioned a few people that you thought needed to be involved in this conversation. Are there any other key players on campuses that need to be involved to make this a success?
There, you know, again, I mean, every school does things a little bit differently, and you find different groups that get involved. But you know, the broad generalities that I described, you know, you really need to have a relationship with your campus store, with the LMS team, with a provost or you know, someone in leadership to be a champion. Those are never going to really change. That every school's going to have those. But you know, sometimes the faculty senate might, you know, want to hear about it or understand what's happening, just to create some comfort. Again, sometimes student government. Oftentimes there is going to be just a security audit standard when anyone is going to integrate a new piece of technology. Scott, are there other folks that you have seen get involved?
I think those are the key folks. I was going to bring up the Security Council reviews. As more and more content's moving to digital, it usually means more and more bespoke integrations stood up at a campus across a publisher or many technology providers. And oftentimes that Security Council, it can slow things down with the number of requests that go into that group, right? I don't know if Jan has had any experience there, but there's a lot of approvals around sharing PII that are important, and what data is exchanged between the providers that has to be considered. That's a key area.
And I'll just add one other thing. I think something that's really important, and another kind of just quick win in the, you know, in the process of just figuring out what's happening on your campus is figure out, you know, who are your partners? Because sometimes, you know, having a variety, for example, at Lock Haven, when Jan and I were talking, you know, the process for students today isn't as simple as it could be because there's a bunch of different vendors involved. And one thing to look at as you're kind of just thinking about what should we do? How can we move more content into the LMS so that students have it on day one? Just look at the relationships you have in place and make sure that everyone kind of plays nicely together, and that you aren't sending students through, you know, loops and loops of, you know, confusion to get to their materials, even if those materials might not be an inclusive access yet. So that's a nice, you know, step to look at too, is just get a group together and understand what does the student process to purchase materials look like today, and can you make that a little easier?
Jan, do you have any other tips or suggestions that would help campuses as they start to think about moving more course materials into the LMS?
The one person that I do closely work with most often is actually from our SIS team. So our student information system, which being in IT, and again, wearing both of those hats, I already have a close relationship with the person that I need to work with on that. But so he helps with, you know, getting the enrollments sent through, and then of course grabbing the charge files when they come back. So so that's going to be another person on the IT side of things who needs to be closely involved. And so it makes it nice there again. I think we had a little bit of confusion there when I wasn't handling things because, the people in the store don't think about, some of the IT side of things. So very important, as you said, to get everyone on the same page and just kind of understand how it all works together.
So what are some of the other tips that you might have outside of who to involve, Jan, that might help as institutions move this way? Is there things about when courses are opened or anything like that that can help institutions?
Sure. I know that we typically open our courses on the very first day of the semester, but I'm finding more and more professors are opting to open their courses at least a few days ahead of time. And once everything is all set up, through inclusive access, students should be able to go in and start accessing their books, as soon as I kind of have that switch flipped, so to speak. So it's very helpful for the students to be able to get into their courses, a few days ahead of time and at least see, what all is required and get into the LMS in general, so that they can see what all is required for the course and make a decision, they're on the opting out or staying opted in. I think that's probably a big one, is for faculty to try and get used to opening their courses, a little sooner than typically they would.
And Scott, what are some key benefits to the campus LMS team to do this process?
If you can find technology providers that always leverage an industry standard like LTI or any of the IMS specs, or you find other technology providers who can help consolidate the delivery of digital content, whether that's ebooks or courseware or anything else, under a single installation, under a single process in the LMS, it can streamline all the things we were just talking about. Less security reviews with your security council. You don't have to install 1,000 different tools in the LMS, right? You're looking for ways to streamline how the technology is delivered across all the different things that students are using in their day-to-day.
And Leann, do you have any other tips or suggestions or benefits that come to a campus that when they move to this model?
Yeah, no, actually, I just thought of a thing that is relevant. So we've talked a lot about kind of benefits to the student and benefits to, the IT team and the LMS team. If you can kind of find a vendor partner to make it, easier to kind of minimize all the different integrations and security reviews. But when Jan and I were talking recently, she was talking about how much more faculty have made use of the LMS and become comfortable. And I thought it might be interesting to talk about, how now is a good time because instructors have become so much more comfortable. So Jan, I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about how you've seen that instructor comfort kind of increase due to the remote learning.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up because that was kind of a big revelation that we had. So for a long time now at Lock Haven, what we do is automatically create a course shell on the LMS for every course that's on the, in the course catalog. And probably, I don't know, a third were using those shells before COVID hit, we will say. So when everybody got sent home in March, again, there was no big process of, what do I do now? The shells were there, the students were in them, the faculty were in them. All they had to do was log into the LMS and start using it. And I had a lot of faculty comment to me about how, great that was. And then as we got on, further into the spring semester, then I'm hearing more and more of them saying, I can't believe I didn't do this before. What was I waiting for? And, exams are so easy and this is so easy and that is so easy. So I'm thinking there are a lot of faculty now who are on board in using the LMS for more and more things now that they were kind of forced into seeing what all options are there. So I think we're going to have, even after we are well past COVID, I can't even get it out because I'm so excited for it. I think we're going to see a lot of faculty who continue to use the LMS, whether their course is online or not, and probably a lot more hybrid courses, at least, in general, now that faculty are used to doing it and they see the benefit for everyone.
So beyond giving the students access on day one, what are some of the benefits or changes to the student experience as you move to this kind of model? Scott, do you want to start?
Sure, definitely. So going back to one of Jan's examples around access code delivery, right? We talked about things we want to move to digital as fast as possible. Access codes are a great one, but there's things you could do even beyond that, right? You're talking about all the administrative overhead of access codes, print inventory for an access code card to vend a digital product that gets out of stock is just horrible when it comes to student experiences, right? So students are trying to go into the LMS, look to see what their assignment is, start learning, and get good and achieve a solid outcome on a test or whatever. Having to have 18 different logins, find and track down access codes, do from all these different bespoke places, it's just not great for students, right? So if you can find tools and technology available in the LMS that can give students a list of their course materials all in one place, give them the ability not to only opt in or opt out of those materials, but access those materials all from the same experience, all from the same place, it's gonna be huge for your students. Less confusion, less support for your support teams about, I don't know where to go put this access code, or I don't know where to go to get this ebook, right? You can centralize all of that for the students, and that's the most important part of this. Leverage standards to access the content, leverage a standard experience so students can get to all their content day one, day two, and further.
Yeah, and then I'll just add to that. Once the students have a kind of more streamlined standard experience, there are benefits in using digital course materials that are accessible through the LMS for instructors and administrators. All of the digital platforms, or most of the digital platforms, including VitalSource, do offer analytics. So an instructor or a department head or an administrator will be able to see, are students actually accessing the materials? Is that money well spent on the student's behalf, on the institution's behalf? And are students kind of keeping up? So instructors can use the dashboards when they're assigning an ebook to make sure students are completing assignments on time and that they're not falling behind. And also VitalSource, and I believe other platforms, also facilitate sharing of notes and highlights. And so they're offering some tools that make it a little easier to learn in a virtual environment. So you could have a class working together inside their content, taking notes, highlights, having, kind of conversations in that way. So it's a little bit more engaging and interactive than a flat, than a, printed book.
We also expose all that data back to the institution via Caliper, which is really cool. Back to the IMS stuff.
Yeah, there are a couple of institutions who actually have started doing some research using that data. We actually did a study using Caliper data with University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and Blackboard a couple of years ago, and found some really, really amazing and insightful takeaways about how you're able to kind of predict student outcomes based on how students are engaging with their assigned course materials. And it was actually, and I might get this, I'm not going to get this perfect, but I'll get the gist of it. Students accessing the course materials was a greater predictor of academic success than their incoming GPA or than just generally their academic background. So getting that data could be really valuable for institutions that are doing some research and trying to have kind of predictive models.
Yeah, that's great information to know about your students to really figure out, are they engaging, especially in this world where you're not seeing them face to face. So, right. All right. And at this point, I think we can kind of wrap up our conversation. So what are some of the kind of key takeaways you want people to remember from this?
All right, I'll run through a few, and Jan and Scott, please feel free to jump in. Just things to think about, kind of key takeaways. First one is, just get to know your campus store or your LMS counterparts, basically the people that we walk through on this call that would help you consider how you might bring more course materials into the LMS so students have that day one access. Look at your current student experience for course materials. Is the current process creating any barriers for student access or affordability? And, how can you, take incremental steps to improve those? Definitely eliminate printed access codes where you can, and just bring those into the LMS so students get that, one-click access. Open the LMS courses a bit earlier. As Jan mentioned, that's been a big help for instructors to, for students to be able to get into their courses sooner and see their course materials. Explore or expand inclusive access so you can help students maximize affordability and have access to their content no matter where they're learning. And then just, look at the partnerships you have on campus and look for partners that can help you kind of manage the course material process from end to end.
Those are good tips for people to remember.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I think above all, just keep in mind that, it's student success, is why we're all here and won't be here if they're not successful. So, I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway for me is, student success and how inclusive access helps students, be even more successful because they're not waiting to get that, the materials that they need, and they have access on day one and they can just take off and get running. So it's perfect.
Great. Thanks for taking the time to have this conversation today. I think it'll be really valuable for other institutions to hear the story about inclusive access and how it can really benefit their students. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.